What is up, coaster fans, and welcome to the very first edition of the Coaster Rundown. For those who don't know me, my name is Cole. I run the channel Park Pros, and I'm joined by my good buddy Jack, who is the channel owner of Coaster John. Jack, how we doing today?
I'm doing great, Cole. Thanks for having me on here.
So basically the idea of this show is to give you guys the latest and greatest coaster news, theme park industry news, every week in a very digestible way. So we'll cover 4 to 5 topics every week, every other week, just depending on how much content we have, how much news there is.
It should pretty much be like a mix of news and our opinions and, a little bit of speculation here and there, but it should be a pretty fun series.
So without further ado, let's dive into this week's stories. Our first topic this week takes us out to your home park, Jack, where they're having all types of issues with their major coasters out there. Of course, we're talking about Six Flags Great Adventure. Back in late June, we saw that El Toro derailed, and all signs are pointing to that being more of a long-term issue than a short fix. And then last week, we saw Jersey Devil closed by RMC as kind of a precautionary measure. Jack, with this being your home park, can you kind of give us a status update on what's going on, what the status is with those coasters? Because it sounds like it's just been an absolute mess.
Yeah, I haven't been back there since Toro derailed. I think I was actually at King's Dominion when I heard the news about that. And it's kind of insane. There were a lot of pictures and videos of the people who got evac'd off, the final element going into the brake run, and that's right around where it derailed. When it first happened, I had heard rumors that it derailed on the first drop and then destroyed the whole track. But it's starting to seem like it derailed sometime in the second half in the twister section, and then that's kind of what they're retracking right now. I still have my fingers crossed that it's going to be reopened sometime, later this year, hopefully for Fright Fest. I really hope so. But yeah, and as you mentioned with Jersey Devil, of course, typical Six Flags, you've got their number 1 coaster down, number 2 coaster Jersey Devil also having issues now, except that seemed like RMC shut down that and Stunt Pilot. We're still not really sure why, but now it's back open, luckily. But it's still having its issues. Jersey Devil has 4 train operations on a good day, but recently it's been more so 2-3 train operations now that it's reopened. According to New Jersey Coasters, the 2 of the trains sort of collided with each other a little bit and I guess cracked one of the noses on one of the trains. So that was, a little bit concerning. Apparently it's still running 2-3 trains, and it's definitely looking like we're going to get back on Jersey Devil multiple times this year. But as far as Toro, still really unsure. The park's been kind of given a little bit of conflict of information, whether it's going to reopen this year or if it's going to be closed the rest of the year. I don't know. Like I said, my fingers are crossed that it's going to open for Fright Fest, but we'll have to see. But hey, at least Jersey Devil's back open. That's that's one thing that the park has.
Yeah, I hope they really have that Jersey Devil situation under control, but what a bummer for all those enthusiasts out there that, were planning on making the trip late summer to Great Adventure. I'm sure on a longer road trip, but to experience Jersey Devil, and you have one of the best roller coasters in the world at that park, obviously in El Toro, and it's looking like more of a long-term issue. So hopefully Six Flags Great Adventure's woes are behind them and they can kind of just move forward, and I hope we see El Toro again in 2021, but it would not surprise me if it's down until 2022. So
the next topic we're going to get into is another big one in the theme park industry. It's of course the Fun Spot Atlanta RMC coming in 2022. So Fun Spot really started teasing this I think a month or 2 ago. First they announced that they were working with RMC, which kind of blew everybody's mind. Obviously they've worked with GCI, they've worked with Gravity Group, but now this is going to be the company's first time working with RMC, which us coaster enthusiasts are obsessed about. At least for me, and I know a lot of other people, when they made that announcement, I was thinking it was going to be the newly announced RMC Family Coaster. They had just announced that, I think a week before. I was like, this is perfect for Fun Spot. This is obviously what they're going to do. But since then, they've released graphic images of a digital recreation of the ride that they're planning on building, and it looks pretty nutso. It's just one element, but it's this giant dive loop. I think, your home park RMC Cole, Goliath has something very similar, and it looks pretty huge. And it's definitely going to exceed my expectations. I wasn't expecting anything remotely that large. And the layout itself, they've just released what it looks like from the sky. But it's going to be a pretty large scale RMC, especially for a tiny little park like Fun Spot Atlanta, which has 2 other coasters nowhere near the caliber of an RMC. And it's just crazy that Atlanta's now going to get a second RMC. This story just blows me away. What about you, Cole?
Yeah, it was a little bit unbelievable when it came out. That's why I think everyone was thinking, the RMC Family Coaster, especially like you said with the timing with that just being recently announced when FunSpot also kind of dropped the news that they'd be doing this project. But you're right, it definitely kind of gives me Goliath vibes just based off these first few teasers that we've gotten. And I think in the layout as well, they did kind of people kind of dug out that there was going to be kind of the stall as well that kind of is featured on Goliath. So we've yet to see kind of numbers on how tall, how long this is going to be. From that initial layout that was kind of uncovered, it doesn't look like it's going to be the longest ride. But it is kind of cool. I mean, we haven't really seen these type of elements, especially the dive loop. There's a stall on Zadra and of course Goliath, and I might be missing another coaster or two.
I mean, Jersey Devil has one, but that's a Raptor. But
Right,
I mean,
yeah, we're talking
from personal experience, the stall is pretty great.
Yeah, it's a great element, and it's cool to see small parks like this making the investment because when you are a small park like this, and I think a lot of small parks across the country are starting to discover this, a large coaster like this doesn't just draw the local crowd; it draws enthusiasts and thrill seekers from all over the country that will go out of their way to make a stop at your park. So it's cool to see
Yeah.
a park like FunSpot, making this investment, and I hope it pays dividends for them, and we see more projects like this from small parks across the country.
Absolutely. And now that gives us enthusiasts a reason to go back to Atlanta, not just Six Flags Over Georgia. I skipped out on Fun Spot Atlanta last year when I went to Six Flags Over Georgia, but I got to get back to Atlanta because that thing looks awesome.
Yeah, it's for sure a must-do in 2022 or maybe 2023. So speaking of RMC, our next topic takes us out to California, where we saw a single-rail RMC track showing up at Six Flags Magic Mountain, presumably for their 2022 new coaster, 2022, 2023. This was initially supposed to be, I think, their 2020 project. And Jack, we were all 99% sure that this was going to be coming at some point. There's been construction for almost 2 years now in that area. And we were sure that the RMC single rail Jersey Devil S-type coaster was going to come to Magic Mountain sooner or later. But what are your thoughts now that this seems to be almost official now?
I mean, like you said, like we all kind of knew that this was coming. The plans were released, I think by like the county or, like the park was trying to get clearance for it. There was markers all over the park. There was different parts of the park that were like blocked off. And obviously as soon as we saw this layout that had been, seeking approval from the county, it looks exactly like Jersey Devil. I think there's like just a slight difference with how it goes back into the station. It's still going to be a clone, which, kind of stinks. Like obviously us Six Flags Great Adventure, fanboys were really excited that, we were getting Jersey Devil, which was finally going to be like an original ride. It wasn't going to be a clone or a relocation. Jersey Devil was technically the first like original coaster that the park had gotten since El Toro. So it had been like over like 15 years pretty much. So it had been a while. But yeah, I mean, as far as like for Magic Mountain, I mean, I've never been there, but this is about to be their 20th coaster, which is just like absurd. I understand that a decent amount of them are like kiddie coasters and stuff. I mean, the same thing goes for Energylandia. I mean, they got close to that many coasters, but like a lot of them aren't, all that great. But yeah, I mean, this yellow track finally shows up at Magic Mountain. And I mean, personally, I thought it was going to be Joker themed. I don't think Magic Mountain has anything Joker themed. And I was hoping that it was going to be Joker themed just because I thought, the green and the purple color palette would have looked really good on a Raptor. I'm sure they'll do that at some park eventually. But now that it's yellow, I guess I'm leaning towards Wonder Woman. I have heard from other people that they think it's going to be the Flash. I feel like the Flash works better for launch coasters, but I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I'm leaning towards it going to be, it's going to be Wonder Woman, and typical Six Flags, they're going to be using that DC theming, so that's pretty much just always how it goes.
Yeah, and it is kind of in that area of the park where there is a lot of DC themed rides, so it does make sense. I'm kind of in the camp where I'm rooting for Flash as well. I think, the way that those other single rails just kind of whip around the track kind of makes sense for that. But I would not be surprised if they just recycle the Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth theme, from Fiesta, Texas. But yeah, 20 coasters at any park is an incredible feat. You kind of wish that this was maybe a bigger, larger single rail, not just a Jersey Devil clone. Not to say that Jersey Devil isn't a great coaster, but just you kind of want the originality factor always. But it's Six Flags, we'll take what we can get, and the Six Flags Magic Mountain lineup is looking, as formidable as ever. So very exciting stuff going on over there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Wonder Woman Golden Lasso coaster at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. Perfect segue over to another Six Flags park with more news, more 2022 teasers. Well, Magic Mountain hasn't teased their Raptor yet, but it's looking like Fiesta Texas is teasing a new coaster like there's no tomorrow, because they've done a whole lot. Just different like teasers and kind of like a whole campaign of trying to get people to guess what their new ride's going to be. But basically, earlier this month, Fiesta Texas released the teaser image for their 2022 project that will be replacing the Sundance Theater. All signs are pointing for this being some type of new roller coaster, and it seems like it's going to be a pretty big project. So personally, I'm leaning towards this being a brand new S&S Axis coaster. It's obviously that ride model that S&S came out with that we're all super excited to see once it finally comes to a new park. But, obviously over the years, Fiesta Texas has kind of been Six Flags' testing ground for new rides. You got Wonder Woman, one of the first ever Raptors, Iron Rattler, one of the first ever RMC hybrids. So, and those two turned out great. So I don't see why Six Flags would stop and not put in another great investment here. And I think that would, just based on how much they're teasing this new ride, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards, something big. I don't think that they would do all this just for like a minor little addition. I think it's definitely going to be something big. And, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I don't know about you, Cole.
Yeah, you could definitely see this being kind of a prototype type of ride, maybe a new model from a manufacturer we haven't seen for a while. I definitely think the S&S Access is a pretty fair guess, if I had to guess. I don't know. I think we know that Six Flags has worked with S&S quite a bit in the past with both, Max Force at Six Flags Great America, not to mention the many, many free spins that we see across the chain. So we know that they're kind of one of their favorite manufacturers right now, even though they might not be the most reliable. The fact is that they're cheap, and Six Flags, likes cheap attractions that kind of draw headlines. So I think an Axis might be a good guess. Maybe they even go back to an air launch type of coaster, although Max Force is having all types of issues. So, but other than that, it's kind of hard to tell what this will be. I mean, they're putting it kind of in this scream punk area of the park that they're developing, across from Daredevil Dive, and that's kind of what the teasers have been all based around. So it should be a pretty interesting addition regardless of what it's going to be. And to be honest, it's not the type of scenario where we knew Magic Mountain was going to get a single rail. It's a very exciting prospect, and they've
kept it under wraps. Yeah.
And the way they've teased it as well has made it kind of seem like it's going to be a pretty big addition. So we'll just have to wait and see. On top of that, we have Poltergeist going down in early July. They're doing an extensive rehab on that, doing some painting. Maybe new trains is what the rumor is. But we'll see how that goes as well. That'll be another major addition. That ride definitely was kind of in need of a little bit of a rehab, a repaint, it looks like they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, new trains on that would be pretty great. I really hate the Spaghetti Bowl launch coasters, like the shin guards that they have. Those are terrible. And Poltergeist was actually down back in March when I went to the park. And that was the only credit we didn't get there at Fiesta Texas. And it did look pretty ugly. Like definitely did look like it needed a repaint. And now it's not even getting just a repaint. They're completely changing the whole color palette of the ride too.
Yeah, it was a bit of an eyesore for sure. So it's nice that ride's getting a little bit of TLC on top of this new 2022 project. So I love Fiesta Texas. It's one of my personal favorite Six Flags parks. So it's kind of good to see that park get a little bit of love and attention over there. So on to our final topic. We have this just bonkers story out of Knott's Berry Farm of a man climbing atop the 300-foot Supreme Scream Tower this past Saturday night. This all happened while the park was open, and instead of closing the park or whatever, the park just cleared guests away from the ride area while authorities attempted to get him down, which makes sense, I guess, but he ended up being up there for about an hour and a half before being detained, and apparently he was taken immediately to a hospital for a mental health evaluation. Jack, this is like an insane story. What do you make of it?
It is. I mean, I hope this guy the best. I hope he's not at too bad of a mental state. I mean, it did from the videos that I saw. I mean, he looked pretty happy to be up there. I mean, he was kind of celebrating. I don't know how the heck he did it. I mean, I guess he's probably just like an experienced rock climber or something, because he must have somehow climbed the entire structure of the drop tower, which is, I've been to Knott's Berry Farm, and that thing's huge. And like, I mean, I know I couldn't have done that. And if I had, I would have been scared out of my mind. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely more of a national news story than probably the things we'll cover on here. And, this actually like made headlines like, oh my God, there's this dude on top of this giant tower at a theme park. I don't know how he did it. I mean, shout out to him, but it's definitely one of the crazier stories I've seen.
Yeah, and my first initial thoughts were maybe this guy is a YouTuber, like a crazy stunt
Yeah.
guy. You know, I've seen people on YouTube, especially in Europe, do things like that where they're climbing to the top of these like massive roller coasters and filming videos and stuff from it. But it does seem like this was more of maybe a mental health situation. So, yeah, we wish the guy all the best, and don't do this if you're gonna go to a theme park. Just stay on the
Please
ground. So that's it for the first ever episode of the Coaster Rundown. Thank you guys for joining us. Like we said, this will be a weekly series where we're covering, all the top stories in the industry, and we're looking forward to many, many episodes to come. So my name is Cole. You can find me here on YouTube, Park Pros, on Instagram at Park Pros. If you're not subscribed to Jack's channel, you can find him at Coaster John. He's releasing a bunch of really cool videos and vlogs from his travels over the past couple months, so go give him a follow.
Please subscribe.
His link to his channel will be the first link in the description, so go check that out. And thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next week.